Is Thabo Mbeki back at the center of ANC politics? What do his recent remarks mean, and what do they say about the ANC and the future of South African politics? Let's find out. Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX. If you're new around here, my name is Dr. Mpofu-Walsh, and on this channel we explore South African politics through interviews and analysis. Don't forget to help us get to 150,000 subscribers. Now, in this episode, I want to take a look at very interesting recent utterances by none other than former President Thabo Mbeki. And I want to inquire into his increasingly central role in ANC politics. Now, in fact, I had a look at this very question because I started noticing former President Mbeki being much more vocal about ANC politics last year. And I want you to have a look at this clip because I do think that in some ways we called his reintroduction into the center of South African politics. Take a look. Former President Thabo Mbeki has played an increasingly important role in ANC politics in these last few weeks of 2021, but in truth, since the Ramaphosa administration began, he's been increasingly active in ANC politics. And I think this has gone under the radar to some extent, and so I want to take a look at what former President Mbeki's reemergence onto the scene of South African politics means. Well, I think that's very much the case now, and I want to zoom in on his most recent statements. We've looked at what he said in various other campaign events, and we'll go into the importance of Mbeki's voice in South African politics right now. But effectively, former President Mbeki has come out swinging against his own party. He effectively says that the ANC is controlled in some provinces by a group of criminal elements, not the entire party, but significant parts of the party and members of provincial executive committees, and that if the ANC does not fix this problem, then it will be doomed to failure. Now, before we get into the specific comments in a bit more depth, I want to take a look at where he said this and the importance of what he said. He was speaking at a gathering of Gauteng provincial leaders. And I think it's notable as well that chairperson of the Gauteng province, Panyaza Lesufi, was effectively the host of this event. Now, Mbeki has actually spoken at a number of events recently around this theme of the need for ANC renewal. He gave a speech in the Free State to Free State provincial leaders saying very similar things. And in remarks at the University of South Africa at UNISA, he also said similar things. So he's clearly driving home this message of the ANC and the ANC being in trouble. Now, what he said was effectively that there are serious criminal elements within the ANC, and if the ANC doesn't get serious about this, it will be devastating for the party. But don't take it from me. Let's listen to some of the specific things he said. Take a listen here.
Have successively, all of them identified this challenge of the decline in the political quality of the members of the ANC. It's a consistent matter that the movement has always identified for a long period of time to say, here is a problem. Let's do something about it, because if we don't, these are the negative consequences it produces. So the idea of that is part of the renewal, you need a process to audit this membership in order to be able, on the basis of certain criteria, to be able to say, this is stay on as a member, and you go on probation. It arises from decisions that have been taken by the movement itself, about itself, over a number of decades. That identification. So this thing that Tam is raising, do we have the core of revolutionaries who are going to lead this process of truly turning South Africa into a non-racial and a non-sexist country? It has to address the thing about the quality of this membership.
So, two things come to mind when I hear these comments. The first is that, I mean, it's good to hear an ANC leader speaking frankly, but the ANC has always spoken frankly about these problems. In fact, Mbeki himself has said that there are various ANC documents from its Mahikeng conference all the way through to the last Nasrec conference saying that there needs to be a new form of ANC cadre. So this is nothing new. But I do have a bit of a problem with ANC leaders waking up to the fact that the party is in a crisis, because my immediate question is, well, how was it allowed to get here? And what did ANC leaders do when the problem was smaller than it currently is now? It's quite a shocking thing to hear right from the leaders of the ANC's mouths that there are genuine criminal elements that have infiltrated into the governing party of South Africa. And the next question which flows from that is, well, then why would you support the party into an election? Because we know that former President Mbeki, a very respected figure in South African society, no doubt, and his presidency, check out the video where I rank South African presidencies. His presidency was probably one of the most successful presidencies of South African presidents. Why would he continue to publicly support a party that he also agrees has these criminal problems within? And so there's always this disjunct and this dissonance I find with these veteran ANC leaders, where they are prepared to criticize the party, but they're not prepared to take the criticism so far that they would leave the party themselves and really try to start something new or reform something from without the ANC. Now, this speaks to a deeper issue, not just with former President Mbeki, but with this mission of ANC veterans. Now, the ANC Veterans League has gone through many iterations, but it's playing an increasingly important role in the ANC at the moment. And the ANC veterans seem to believe that the party can be rescued. Now, in some ways, I understand why the ANC veterans, are so invested in rescuing the party. You'll remember Mavuso Msimang, a key and respected ANC veteran. He left the party, and 2 days later, he said, actually, no, I can't leave the party. I'm back. And we can't underestimate that there is this deep psychological connection with these veterans. They have supported the ANC their entire lives, and they can't imagine South Africa outside the ANC. And so rather than investing themselves in rebuilding the liberation movement, not just the ANC, or investing in new creative initiatives outside the ANC, their life's work has always been about the ANC, and now their life's work is about resuscitating the ANC. It is interesting to see just how deep these election results have gone within the ANC. Of course, the party presents a strong front in public, but when we go into these meetings, in the rare moments that they are recorded, the ANC feels like it's facing an existential crisis, and it probably is. To be at 39.7% of the vote when you add the regional and national ballots, that's massive, and ANC leaders are starting to wake up, and I think this is a good thing about the election result. Even if the ANC has a lot of power still right now, the election result has really rocked ANC leaders, and they're now talking about, if we don't do something, then there will not be a party. So have a look at this clip from former President Mbeki where he makes that point.
But it's used as a title, like Mr. and Mrs. and Miss and so on. Yeah. It's about this issue, comrade Chair. Practically, seriously. These people we call comrades, are they comrades? I'll give you the one last example. After the 2021 elections, somebody circulates a voice note. And that voice note is from a comrade who comes from Newcastle in KZN. And he says, we did not campaign during these last municipal elections in Newcastle. We did not campaign as ANC. He mentions one name of a comrade. He says was very popular in the area, would always get elected. He did not campaign either. And the IFP approached us and persuaded us not to campaign. We didn't campaign. And the reason, he says, if we'd campaigned, we would have won the municipal elections in Newcastle. But we would have put in power criminals, the ones who are leading us. That's why we didn't campaign.
So, to come back to the veterans then, the veterans, I worry, are so invested in trying to rebuild the ANC that they don't see the other opportunities outside the ANC. And in some ways, they are blind to just how deep the crisis of the ANC goes. And in actual fact, it ends up tainting them rather than fixing the ANC. Because we have these important leaders in our society to whom some people look for guidance and leadership, and you just hope you're going to get a serious criticism of corruption, of maladministration, of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. It doesn't have to be a party political criticism, but these leaders of society are always constraining themselves because they serve two masters. They serve internal ANC masters, and then they serve society. And they're trying to mediate this distinction between the two, and actually ending up serving neither, because sometimes the party just ignores them. And quite frankly, let's look at some of these so-called integrity committee reports, right? What happened to the Phala Phala integrity committee report? Nothing. Completely ignored. I think all of society seems to have just ignored this issue. I saw journalists meeting with the president the other day for about 2 hours. Not a single question on Phala Phala from our country's journalists. Now, there are different kinds of interviews, but this is an accountability space where journalists were there to probe and ask the president questions, and all they could ask was, how great do you think the GNU is, basically, and how long do you think it will survive? So in dismissing these issues internally into the ANC and not providing an internal accountability check, that also spills over into society. And there's just a general lack of accountability for powerful ANC leaders at this moment. And we are where we are, I guess, with this. So I find Mbeki's comments interesting in the context of a wider move by veterans to try and save the party. But the question is, what is there to be saved and what can be salvaged from the ANC going forward? This idea that it's going to get back to its former glory has been sold for nearly 2 decades now, and yet we are yet to see this former glory. Now, I find it interesting that Panyaza Lesufi was the leader hosting former President Mbeki, because I did a show a couple of weeks ago looking at the ANC's succession and looking at who might be the next ANC president after Cyril Ramaphosa. And I mentioned Lesufi right at the end, but I saw a lot of the comments, which I was interested by, said, how come I didn't mention him more forcefully? And it seems to me that Lesufi, in inviting these different ANC leaders and respected leaders in society, may be building a campaign around a potential bid for ANC leadership. Whether that's president, I don't know, but significant influence nationally in the party. Now, traditionally, we've had a factional split, which has been kind of the pro-Zuma, anti-Zuma camp, which has characterized ANC politics for a long time. But now that Zuma has gone, there is a new dividing line in ANC politics. And that dividing line is really pro-GNU or pro-working with the DA and anti-working with the DA. And I think that Panyaza Lesufi could be positioning himself as someone who will lead the ideological mission against this deal with the DA. We saw Solly Mapaila talking about how the SACP and COSATU don't really agree with this deal with the DA. And we've seen the Gauteng ANC breaking away from the DA deal and going it alone in Gauteng and successfully defying the national mother body. So it's interesting to me that Lesufi is hosting Mbeki. He also hosted Naledi Pandor, for a special honorary session along with former Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. So he's clearly also building a base of support with veteran leaders of the party who have respect, but also rising internally to challenge this idea that the ANC should partner with the DA. And I think going to the 2027 conference, there's going to be this big battle between those who support partnering with the DA and those who oppose it. And that's where the battle line will be drawn. And the eventual president or leadership candidate will emerge from one of those two camps in the ANC. And it will be fascinating to see which camp eventually prevails. Fam, I just wanted to interrupt this episode to let you know the 4 ways you can help SMWX. Way number 1, you can invite me to speak at your institution or company. Way number 2, you can advertise on this channel. Way number 3, you can become a member of this channel. The link to the membership is down below. And number 4, you can buy merch, that's books or hoodies. Now let's get back to the episode. All our contact details are in the description box below. Now, in 2007, former President Mbeki tried to become ANC president for a 3rd term, and he was ousted by Jacob Zuma, of course, President Jacob Zuma, who now leads the MK party. And since then, Zuma has been a key figure in ANC politics. But ever since Zuma has left the ANC and was on his way out of the ANC, suddenly Mbeki came in more and more. And it seems that he is the former president who is starting to have a disproportionate influence over ANC politics. He doesn't hold any leadership role, but his voice matters. And I think it will continue to matter into the next 5 years of South African politics, and indeed, long may he live, into the 2027 ANC conference. So I think we should start to expect a more vocal Thabo Mbeki, because he's clearly made it his mission to try and restore and renew the ANC. Whether that mission is achievable, we can debate, but that is his mission. And I think it's a good thing. Ultimately, this is what former presidents should be doing, trying to rebuild their parties, trying to speak about national issues of public importance. And I commend him for that, even though I think he may be being, shall we say, optimistic about the prospects of rebuilding the ANC. So I would keep an eye out for what former President Mbeki does in the build-up to various future ANC leadership contests, and keep a close eye on his public statements, because I think he's wielding increasing amounts of power within the party once again. Like, share, subscribe, and keep it locked on SMWX. Good to see you back, fam, and see you on the next one. Aye.